Welcome to Crowning Around, where every woman wears a crown, whether she's 17 or 70. I'm Joan Caliendo, and this is the space where magic happens when women empower women. Each week, we'll dig into topics like ageism, stepping into your power, and everything in between. And today, we're kicking it all off with a queen in her own right. Me, Ms. New York Senior America. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 14. If you notice, I'm here alone tonight because my guest is going to be via Zoom. And I'm so excited to have her because here in the frigid Northeast, where we had a foot of snow this past weekend, and the temperatures are in I don't know, the 20s, 15, 18. I thought I was going to say to you, but my guest is hailing from sunny Southern California. But when I just checked in with her via the Zoom link, she is actually coming to us from the Sundance Film Festival in Utah. And she said it's equally as cold there. So I want to begin by saying tonight's show is going to be called Make It Rain, which is a title I took from the Hollywood Reporter magazine that I was glossing through because my guest is a power broker in the town of Hollywood. So I wanted to make a little correlation to the cover of the magazine, which is really featuring George R.R. Martin, who is the creator of the Game of Thrones legacy, that is that programming. And when I say make it rain, I'm referring to my guest tonight, who is royalty in her own right. And that is Miss Megan Colligan, class of 91, Carle Place alum. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you.
Hi. It's chilly there too. I was surprised to see you in a turtleneck, but we're sharing the coldness. And I wanted to say you were from sunny California, but that's where you live, but that's not where you're coming from tonight. So I want to give our audience a little background in yet another Carle Place alum that is outstanding. And if the name Colligan sounds familiar to many of you, it is because her dad is the gentleman I worked with for over 30 years at Carle Place High School, who was my athletic director, and Colonel Colligan was on probably one of our better shows, the Veterans Day show, where we had 3 veterans from different branches of the military that evening. And I got a lot of positive feedback about taking the time to make mention of those gentlemen and one lady that hailed from Colorado. So let me start with a little background on Megan by saying currently she is the president of Row K Entertainment, which is a distribution, company that began from the 50th Toronto Film Festival. That's where the organization was born of, and she is currently the president of. She formerly was the president of IMAX and president of marketing and distribution at Paramount Pictures as well. She is a member of AMPAS and the winner of the Sherry Lansing Award from the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Los Angeles, which is a very prestigious award. And she currently resides on the board of that organization from when she won the award in 2013. She is the mother of 3 sons, and her husband, Mr. Mark Roybal, is an executive at 20th Century Fox. And if that name sounds familiar to many of you, he is also very much involved in some of the programming on HBO that you may have seen recently, including Task, and my favorite, which was Mayor of Easttown. I thought that was a fantastic series. She is a Harvard graduate, as is Mark. And what I didn't know, because I was her history teacher back at Carle Place, is that she majored in history. And I was so impressed with that. And I said, any inspirations? And she smiled. So here she is to begin our evening and begin our Queen's Court with some of the questions that I think will lead us down a path to understand pretty much the role she plays in a very big industry, and how she got there. So welcome, Megan.
Thank you. That was such a nice introduction.
I do my homework, Megan, as you know. So we're going to start with the Queen's Court. And if you see me with a little light here today, it's because my print is not so large, so I'm struggling a little to see what I wrote. But yeah, I'm ready to roll and talk about some of the questions that I think will get you to know a little bit about Megan's position out in Hollywood. So I started with the concept of mirror, mirror, ageism in the media. And I wanted to know if you could address the ways in which you have rose above representation, stereotypes, and perhaps now at this age, some of the challenges in your industry.
I think that the stereotypes that we bring to the media business are so pronounced because then they get reflected in the movies that get made and the movies we produce and distribute and the TV shows that get made and distribute. So I think there's been a lot of discussion about that, particularly over the last decade. I think there's been a heightened awareness about that. But that doesn't mean that, you know, there's been like a magic wand and everything's improved. I think you have to be really mindful of distribution. I was explaining this to somebody, just being in a distribution company, what we do and why I'm at Sundance is we look at movies that are already made and you think about like what you want to buy. Now, what happens is at Toronto or at Sundance, like I've seen so many movies that I love. But then you start to think about like what movies are me and my team the best suited to sell, which is a slightly different question. It's not just about liking a movie. It's actually about
Right.
like, how do you crack the case of how to bring that movie to an audience and what audience are you selling to? And I don't think you're limited, because you're a middle-aged woman that you can only sell middle-aged female things. In fact, I think, you get informed by everything in your life and your experiences in marketing and in distribution about how to do those things and how to build upon those experiences. So, I've released 4 Transformers movies, like, so I have a basis of understanding about big
Three
blockbusters.
boys.
Yeah, exactly. And I've released a lot of animated movies and I've released documentaries, and you're pulling on all of those experiences to try and reach audiences. But I do think, like, especially with indie movies that are so hard to make, they're so hard to finance, and then they're small in the world on a, on a general basis. But then they, when they find audiences and they break out, they're some of the most exciting movies. So like everybody's experiencing it right now with the Academy Awards cycle, a movie like Hamnet about,
Right.
Shakespeare's
The loss of, a
wife.
child and how passionate a writer
Yeah,
could be. Right. Honestly, those performances are unreal. Next level, in my
yeah.
opinion.
And I mean, I'm in the business and I was driving and listening, and somebody was saying on a podcast I was listening to that it had just made $45 million and it had just gone wide. And it's got all this very long road to the Oscars. It's probably going to make $70 million or more. Like, that's a lot of money for a little movie like that. And that's a lot of people thinking about Shakespeare in a new and different way. So
Right.
having the right relationship to the media you sell, I think, is really important. And being really responsible about that, I think, is really important. You have to have, these are real, in this position, it's really about passion. But I do think, like, you are capable of selling anything to anyone. You have to have the right idea.
All right. So here's my question to you as you're explaining things very, carefully. If something resonates with you at this age, at this point in your life, right? And you're a
Yeah.
mother and you live on the West Coast and, things are what they are in the country. If it resonates with you, right? You had a certain feeling while you were sitting in the theater, but then you go back to your job and say, I don't know that I would want to market that because I don't know that there's the appeal because I'm at this niche in my life. And I don't know if that's the broader appeal. So how do you balance that?
That happens. I mean, that really does happen, because there's also, my job is to bring movies into movie theaters and make movie theaters a priority. And there are some movies that I watch and I go, God, I love that. I
Right.
couldn't love that more, but I don't know that it is theatrical. It may not be the kind of movie that makes you want to get out into your car and
And
grab
go.
and go see
Right.
it. But you will discover it on a streaming platform in a different way, or you might discover it in some other way. So there's natural homes for things too. I think like um uh and it may be that I'm wrong about that, but you have to have the right idea about
Mhm.
what will compel you to want to go out and make that commitment, which is,
Right.
that's time, energy, and money, and we're asking for that as an audience member. That's a lot of, it's a lot easier to sit on the couch when there's great shows like Task and Mayor of Easttown. So, like,
Yeah.
we take that responsibility seriously. So it isn't it I like so many movies that I end up not buying and not selling.
Ah, so that's a good point. So I watch the, parade of shows that, give everybody their awards and their flowers. I love it. I love every minute of the clothing. I love every minute of the banter and the comedy. I'm all in. But I have noticed that people have been saying over and over again, please go to the movies.
Yeah.
Please get out and go to see this in a theater with other people reacting the same way as you or not the same way as you. I think that's something that's a little lost, even though you're making money on these streaming sites and all that, you'll recoup the amount of money because people will still watch it. I think The Substance was one of those movies last year that, a lot of people didn't go see that in the theater, but it definitely got, its popularity out there. But what do you think is the push for going back to the theater? Are we having a little technical difficulty, Bobby? I think she's a little frozen, right? Are we back? That's her dad in Shelter Island. I think she might be frozen. It could be the weather. Okay. So we are speaking with Miss Megan Colligan, and I think something happened to her feed in regard to the transmission via Zoom. So the question I was just posing to her, and some of you at home may feel the same way, is, what's the value of going to the movie theater and seeing a film, experiencing it live with audience members, and eating the bucket of popcorn and getting the Slurpee because it seems to be some sort of a dying art that is, Hollywood is longing to get people back into the theaters so that the reactions are real, and maybe because also the price of a ticket of a movie is quite high at this time, and that's another better way to recoup what is actually quite an expensive industry. So I'm going to forge on a little bit because I don't want to waste anyone's time, because Megan and I were live with each other for a good 20 minutes before the show aired. And I asked her some of these questions because I thought it would be a great way to springboard into the actual feed. So, the hard part about her position being a female in a very male dominated industry, and being at the top of the food chain, which is exactly where she is and where she belongs and where she is valued, is that she does have a lot of eyes on her. And as you kind of heard her intimate, she does have to buy good movies that can have a production value, while maintaining her ethics and morals about how she feels about what the public is viewing. And she said she went today in Sundance to the wrong theater. She was sent to go see a particular movie, and it turned out to be a movie about glaciers, which she said is very interesting because the theme at the Sundance Festival this year is sex. And there she was sitting in the movie theater watching an Icelandic movie, basically about, the idea that the glaciers are melting. And she got very much into it, but then she realized that she was missing something she really should have been viewing. And my question to her was, why is there no retrospective on Robert Redford being that he is the founder of the Sundance Film Festival, and he recently passed. So for those of you who thought maybe I should go out to Sundance this year and watch, The Way We Were and The Sting and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and relive all those special moments with that screen idol, Megan said it's not what's happening there. Once again, the theme is sex. And she said, though, at every conversation, at every dinner that she has gone to, in a lovingly polite, enamorous way, people are remembering stories about the great Robert Redford and his contributions not only to film as an actor and not only to film as a director, but to the idea of championing young filmmakers and independent movies that Megan was explaining to me have a really tough time getting into the marketplace, pretty much because of cost, because they're unknowns. Maybe some of the actors and actresses in these movies are not as well known as what people are willing to pay for to go to the theater. Many of them are foreign films, which I hope she gets to come back on. I'd love to talk to her about some of those films that have been nominated. And I think we have her back. Megan, you're good?
Oh my
Okay.
God.
What happened?
We just
Okay.
had a power outage.
I was just going to say, it must have been a power outage. Okay, you're back.
I'm sorry.
Jumped ahead. No, listen, it happens. Thank God I'm a good talker. Because I filled that space with a lot of things about Robert Redford because that's what I really wanted to know about. Okay, we're back to you. Here's the question. Yes. The question is, again, it's kind of springboarding on what we already said. How do you guide the next generation of young women that are coming out with these dreams of being in the movie industry and on your end, marketing, distribution, et cetera, promoting? How do you do that? And do you do that? Do you give back in the sense of going to local colleges or trying to promote something? Do you have your own podcast? That's a good question. Do you have your own podcast?
I don't. No.
Okay. Well,
that's too. You're very inspiring.
Okay, good. I'd love to hear that. But tell me what you do for young women in the sense of, and men, of promoting what you're doing and your success.
I think that there's a couple of things that are really important. Not to be too long-winded
now the floor is yours.
Not where I got it from, but yeah. But when the Time's Up movement happened, which was like, 2018, it was really an eye-opening experience. I was very involved in that. I was on the global board of Time's Up. And it was so interesting because I learned there was obviously some big things it was tackling. It was like the big, the moment of Harvey Weinstein and all of that. But there was like very simple things that I had learned. Like I had always sort of been raised, and I think a lot of people from Long Island, like we have a real approach to life of like put our head down and work hard. And I think especially women have that. And then you have limited time and you have 3 kids at home. And so you're like, I'm going to do my job. I'm going to be the first to my desk. I'm going to be the last one to leave. I'm going to eat lunch at my desk. I'm going to do my work. I'm going to pack it all in. But then when I leave, I'm never going to have any extraneous stuff. I'm not going to lunch and screwing around. I'm not going to drinks and screwing around. I'm like, I'm doing what I'm going to do. And then when I'm having time off, I'm going to have it with my friends and I'm going to, get away from work. The thing about it is like having work connection, I think is really, really important. And it's something I never valued. And it's something I really learned a lot about. So having that like sisterhood and connection and being a partner to somebody when they need you because they're having a struggle at work is so critically important. You may be doing great. Because there will be a time that you're not doing great or you have a real about something, and having those sounding boards in your life are really important. And I do think women need to make that extra effort because I don't think we're particularly wired for it. Even though we're very social and we like being social, we like a very on and off kind of approach to things. And I think we have to create space to be intentionally focused on being there for each other, partners and work friends. And I think
I think we're having another little technical
yeah,
glitch.
sorry, it's so
Okay.
crazy. I don't know what's
Okay,
happening.
you're back, go ahead.
Um, and then the other thing I would say, mentoring is really important. I sit on a board of a mentoring organization, and that is really about like reaching down to the next generation. The film business is very predisposed for that. Assistants come on your desk. They're not going to be lifetime, secretaries. Like, they're there to learn what you do, how you
Right,
do it, and not necessarily to be you, but like to start to understand the things that they do and they don't want in the business, and then they start to navigate their career. And I think, reaching out to be able to give people their starter jobs is really important, and helping navigate through those very important like first years is critically important. The mentoring piece pays dividends, I think, in so many different ways. And you
mhm,
can have, everybody knows this and it's easy to say, but I think it can't be lost on anyone how much impact you can have on a younger person when you take the time to just give them a little bit of focus and a little bit of advice.
right.
And it makes a massive difference. And in the film business, I think it's particularly needed and constructed to try and create that. And then the last thing I would say is you never stop needing mentors. And so
Yeah,
that sometimes when you're, at the ripe old age of 53, like you thinking about like who you reach up to, and constantly trying to learn from people that have done the thing you're doing before you, I think is really important. And you mentioned the Sherry Lansing Award. Sherry Lansing retired as the chairwoman of Paramount Pictures when she was 60 years old. She's now 83, but she is
wow.
the coolest, smartest, best woman. She's now on the board of Paramount, invited back to be on the board because she's knows more about Paramount and the history of Paramount than anybody. She's the board chair of Universal Music Group, one of the most important music labels in, if not the biggest music label in the world.
Mhm.
So she's just like still so relevant, but she does take the time to have lunch, and impart wisdom and listen to stories, and, share her thoughts on things. And I think you never know what little nuggets you pick up, and it really is wildly helpful.
That's amazing. All right,
Yeah.
so you're turnkeying everything that you've been blessed with, right? So that's pretty much your message, like listening and still willing to help and guide and mentor, and that's very valuable and important. And something I was thinking of while you were speaking, and tell me your thoughts on this and how you feel on this. There's just something to be said about women that were athletes.
I was going to
Right.
say,
And I've said it 100 times over, no matter what job I was in or what I was working on at school, there's that collaborative, right, piece that's in your DNA. There's that, dare I say, coaching piece.
mhm,
I'm the daughter of a coach, you're the daughter of a coach. You have that drive within you as a competitor, right? So when you said, put your nose down, it's not a Long Island thing. This is how you were groomed, get your job done. Your mom is a worker, your mom was an educator, your father is an educator. Like, this is how you do things. The slack off stuff, you want to go party on the weekends. Of course, there's time to do those things. But, what I'm hearing from you is that your training as a student athlete is what I think guided you towards the way in which you achieved the success that you have. And now you're turnkeying it. Would
yeah.
that be accurate?
Yes, I think sports are wildly helpful because I think for everything, I think you really learn. And I think, to be a woman in this business, I think it's really important. I think you relate to men really well, and you're around a lot of male athletes and you're comfortable around men. I think you learn what a team is about, and you understand hierarchy, I think, in a way that's important. You know how to assert yourself when you need to assert yourself, and where you fit in on a team and what your job is in at any given time. At times you're meant to score 20 points, and at times you're meant to pass the ball a lot and play good defense. Like,
Know your role.
yeah, yeah, you're more of a role player, and like you just figure out like what you're meant to do at any given time, and your job is to go do it. I think I've always said this. I think it's why I love the film business so much, because I feel like I'm going out and, you're gearing up for the big game, and the game is releasing the movie, and you either win or you lose. And when you lose, it's awful. You feel terrible. It feels like losing a championship game. It feels
Defeated.
horrible. It's terrible, but you do learn always as something very important. There's something you could have done better. There's something that the team itself could have done better. You reflect on it, you dust yourself off, and then you got another game coming. Like there's something else that's coming down the road. So you get your confidence back and get your act back in gear, because the next thing's coming. And so I think it's a healthy way to look at it, because resiliency is key. You can't get down.
Yeah, I love that. And so funny because too, in the workforce now, my daughter is working, and everything is, well, my team thinks this way, that even using that term is part of our vernacular now. Like, it's better for the team if we all get our projects done on time. And I'm just thinking to myself, the people who were athletes are probably the greatest contributors to that mentality, right? In any workforce. And I see that in you, because I remember you as an athlete. And, it opens doors as well, because you can sit down with people and guide, listen, play your role, and work collaboratively, which I think is how everybody's job gets done better, at the end of the day. Yes. So I'm glad we're back, working without a glitch right now. I shared almost all of your stories that we did off air about the Icelandic movie and why you were in the wrong spot. So thank God we spoke. But we're going to take a little commercial break right now. We'll be back right after these messages.
Great.
Ever felt stuck with a home that just doesn't feel right anymore? Whether it's that outdated kitchen or the bathroom that needs a refreshed look, Twice as Nice Construction has got you covered. Family owned for over 20 years. Twice as Nice Construction has been providing beautiful new construction and additions and stunning remodels like kitchens and bathrooms. We're not just experts, we offer unbeatable quality and prices to help make your dream come true. Ready to start building your dream home or to give your kitchen and bathroom that much needed makeover? Contact Twice as Nice today and make your dream a reality. Visit twiceasniceremodel.com today for quality you can see and service you can trust. Twice the value, twice the commitment, Twice as Nice.
Imagine turning an ordinary gathering into an electrifying night at a Las Vegas casino. With Ace Authentic Casino and Entertainment, we bring the thrill of blackjack, roulette, poker, and more right to your door. For over 20 years, we've been transforming parties in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut into unforgettable events. Ready to elevate your next event? Experience the joy today with Ace Casino Parties. Visit us at acecasinony.com.
Hello and welcome back. You and I are here speaking with my guest today, who is coming to us from the Sundance Film Festival and is a Carle Place alum and a student of mine. And we're sharing some insights on the industry that is known as Hollywood and how to climb that ladder and continue to grow in an industry that is worth billions and billions of dollars, and how success comes and how it falls and how to get right back up and be resilient. So please welcome back to the program, hopefully no more glitches, Miss Megan Colligan. And we're up to our third question, Megan, and this is called True Hollywood Confessions. So we watch so much stuff, feeds, streaming, movies, television programming. True Hollywood Confessions. Which celebrities, artists do you feel, male and female, are the people that we should be looking at and emulating in today's society? So you get to pick one and one. Who's your top two?
Oh gosh, it's such a tough question.
Sure.
I think that It's so funny. I stared at this and I was like thinking, I thought about it very much from like a workplace right now. And I right now am having like, this is such a goofy answer, but I'm having like such a like a Timothy Chalamet moment right now
Why
because
not?
he just did, the selling of Marty Supreme. There's going to be people out there that didn't like the movie. There's going to be people that love the movie, but the selling of that movie, getting people to go out in theaters and be excited about the
Right.
movie was like, something from, of the playbook that I sort of dream about because he sold everybody on an idea. And what the idea was that he got very motivated on a personal level to want to be in this movie and produce the movie. And, the idea of dreaming big and being a scrappy athlete who didn't come from much and was do anything to be successful, including being a total scoundrel, but they kind of left that part out of the campaign. They just really focused on the idea that he was like, sort of joyfully attacking his dream and would stop at
Yes.
nothing. And with the merch and the blimp and
The
all of
orange outfits and yeah.
nuts. And so it got everybody on the internet doing the thing that you want everyone to do, which is like, what the heck is Marty Supreme?
Yeah.
It was a lot of mystery there. You didn't know much about the movie. Most people went into it with like a pretty basic level of understanding of what it was all
Yeah.
about. So it was like a fun way to see a movie. And, I think the discoveries in that are kind of great. And I hope it really inspires people to want to see what's possible because I think it got, you can imagine selling that movie very traditionally.
Sure.
That would be a very different outcome, I think. It'd be like a serious Academy movie about like striving
Like an
this.
underdog story that we all love.
Yeah,
Right?
the real
Yeah.
life guy who was really good at ping pong. That'd be a much smaller outcome, I think, for how the movie would ultimately
I
perform.
100% agree, and I am a fan of his because he is a scrappy New York kid,
Yeah,
right? That just, put on what, 10 pounds to
yeah.
achieve the goal of a superstar ping pong player. Not since Forrest Gump have you seen anyone play for, ping pong in that nature. But even when I see him, the way he carries himself at award shows or anything in the press, he's very respectful and mindful of the people who have helped him and carry him still to this day. And I like that New Yorker. I
Yeah,
like him.
I do
I
too.
get him and I like him. He's been in some really crazy roles and he's not afraid of them and I like that. So
Yeah,
I like your choice. How
yeah.
about female?
I think he's great. Female, I think, there's so many. Because I think, I was trying to think about empowerment. So of course my first idea was Oprah, like
Right?
Oprah
Sure.
owns and ends everything. But the youthful, like new version of that might be like a Margot Robbie. She's
Fantastic.
producing so many interesting things and she's being very bold in her choices. I
Yes.
think, Barbie felt like a big, massive hit based on big, massive IP, but that was like a very brave movie that her you know I worked with her on Wolf of Wall Street and she had sort of just arrived on the scene
Mhm.
and she has sort of exploded so quickly. That movie wasn't that long ago.
No.
She's a producing powerhouse and doing a lot of interesting movies, but really puts her energy and her effort into the things she produces, and I think has a real voice in terms of the kinds of things that she's making. You'll see her next up in Wuthering Heights is her
Yeah,
next film.
Valentine's Day. Perfect.
Valentine's Day, yeah, something that's coming up for the kids. And so I just think she's a really interesting, I think we're going to be seeing like a lot of really interesting stuff from her. And she works with a lot of female directors and she really, she's intentional, I think, in a lot of ways that she chooses to do her work.
Love that. Love
She's,
that answer. I agree with you too. I'm a fan.
yeah,
She goes from, a Staten Island housewife in Wolf of Wall Street to Barbie, which perfect casting. Perfect. Right?
yeah,
Greta Gerwig, right? I mean, if you're going to pick someone who resembles Barbie, Stop
Totally.
at Margot Robbie. Who else are you going to get? Perfect. And I went to see that with a group of ladies, and some people got the nuances and some people didn't like it.
Yeah.
I was all in. I was dressed in pink. I was all in. But some people criticized. And then I think I watched it again to get a little bit more on the level of what was really being portrayed. And I thought Ryan Gosling was fantastic in that as well.
Yeah.
So I like both of those choices. So
It's like
you
a
hit it out of the
really
park.
dirty movie done on like a massive scale, because it's really bold in a lot of the things it's saying and doing, and
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 it's
taking
generational too, how you looked at it, because my Barbies were different than your Barbies. What they meant to us were different things, body image, all that stuff.
yeah.
I tried to explain to everyone that was with me. It didn't work. But okay, here's our last portion of the show before I get a chance to introduce who's coming next week, which I have a clip because I want you to see him because he's also a Carle Place alum. So it's just the hits keep coming. My tiara tip of the week is something that I like to close with from my guests that kind of lingers right until the next show, which is every other week. And in introducing you on social media, I kept referring to glass ceilings and how you had shattered them. I don't know if you like that reference or not, but I would like for you to comment on the fact that I see you in that manner, which is a compliment. And do you agree that that is something that you've accomplished in your career and continue to do?
I take it in as such a compliment because I really do appreciate it, and I think that that's a really important thing. And I think I, but I do think that what continues to be hard about the business can be the fact that there is very much a boys club in operation, and so and the connectivity and the connection that women have is still few and far between. And so like when I'm at a dinner with all of the heads of all of the indie film companies, they are mostly men, if not almost all men. When you think of the studios, there's one studio run by a woman. I think I'm getting that right. It's really the number of female directors is drastically down. It was 4% last year of overall movies, which is really like a massive step back. So it's in some ways like it's funny because I think I tend to run very optimistically, and I tend to lean towards the positive, and I always I go to a lot of women in power breakfasts and a lot of sit on panels with women, and so I tend to um, always kind of lean towards how good it is and how great it is. But the fact of the matter is, like, it is really still, I think, very, very challenging. And I think it's actually kind of hard to completely quantify the ways in which it's difficult. I don't, there's so many great male allies out there. There's so many great men. I love men. I get along with men, and being a feminist doesn't mean that you don't love working with men. But there are ways in which there is a, a natural camaraderie that exists among men, that when there's so many of them, and that it is there is opportunities that you do feel like don't exist in quite the same way, or moments that aren't happening in quite the same way that would be happening if you were sitting on the other side of things. And so I think like the job just continues to be to make sure that, like, when you're heading a table, that seated at that table are as many women as you can have sitting there, so that you're properly representing everybody, and that you're hearing diverse voices from all different types of people, and that you're really getting a sense of different positions and different point of views that challenge your point of view, so that you're always just thinking about the world in a lot of different ways. And it's a fun way to do it, and I think it's an important job still, and I think there is a lot of work to do. So I appreciate that it feels good. I will say,
Yes.
some days it feels great, and some days it feels hard.
Some days it feels hard. Well, keep on fighting the good fight.
Thank you.
Because, not to paraphrase Hamilton, but I know you'll love this reference, you're in the room where it happens.
That is true.
Right? That is true. You are in the room where it happens. Okay, so let me start by introducing who we're going to see in February. So as we approach the frigidness of February and President's Week and Black History Month, I'm inviting an up-and-coming comedian by the name of Jason Habanek, who is also a Carle Place alum, and he is frequently a headliner out here on Long Island at a place called Governor's. And although he is a comedian, he would like to share the message of the plight that he has had of being a fat guy in a skinny world, because his comedic name is Fat J. There he is, pictured right there. I think his t-shirts read, "Blimpin' ain't easy." But on a serious note, when I contacted him, he said he would love to come on the show because he would really love to talk about the fact that he was bullied his whole life and that comedy was truly his outlet. And he's having a run right now, and he's becoming a very successful comedian locally, and we're hoping that that springboards to something a little bit more nationwide. So I thought I'd close out today's show by showing you a little clip of his comedy, so please enjoy.
So I went to my favorite pizzeria yesterday, 2:30 in the afternoon, completely forgot it's right next to a school. 8 million little kids in there. Finished my 5 pies. And as I'm walking out, one little bastard in that crowd of 8 million kids. Holy shit, how fat is that guy? I turned around, I was like, wow, kid, be nice, bro. You wouldn't talk to Santa Claus like that, would you? He turns right back around and goes, I'm Jewish, there is no Santa Claus, you fat fuck. A lot of Jewish here in Smithtown tonight. It was at that point I realized 2 things. Number 1, I live in a pretty nice neighborhood. Number 2, this little shit's about to learn the hard way. So I got down to his level, because they always say get down to their level. I was like, son, I'm this fat because after I bang your mom, she feeds me cake and cookies and shit. It was at that exact minute I find out just how good the neighborhood really is. This little Italian kid yells out, I always knew your mother was a hooah. So I went to my favorite.
All right. So if you liked that,
Awesome.
that's going to be my guest next week. This is the line he shared with me. He said he is Ralph's Ice's favorite customer, and he's the person everyone wants to sit next to on a plane. So he's coming with his sarcastic humor to sit here and talk about how comedy has really saved him. But I remember him as a kid in my class, and I certainly remember some of the things that he was struggling with at home and also within the confines of the halls. So we're going to have a serious but yet open conversation about what it was like, to grow up in that manner and then find comedy as his outlet. So we look forward to seeing him on the 10th of February. That will be the next show. So before we say goodbye to Megan, I have to ask, Best Picture, what's your pick?
I think One Battle After Another is it.
I just saw that. You do, right?
I do.
And Tiana, right?
I do hope so. She was so cute on Saturday Night Live, and
really was.
Her energy is great. I'm a big fan.
Very positive.
Yeah.
All right. I thank you so much for taking the time, for coming on this little simple show, which I'm so proud of you. This is me personally speaking to you. I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of everything that you stand for and how wonderful you have navigated this industry and held yourself to such a high level. I love your family, but I haven't seen you in such a long time. And I just wanted to say to you, thank you for coming on and continue to do your good work.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was great.
It was great. All right. So watch it back and give me your feedback and your critique, because I would love to hear it from you. And The
Why-
rest of you,
why-
you know, I was critiquing you for years. Now I want it back. The
No,
rest
no,
of
it's
you,
great.
please join in on February the 10th, and we'll see you then. Stay warm, New York. Take care.